Okay, so this is part 2. So if you are watching this first, you are watching part 2 first. So you need to go back and watch part 1 before you move on to this video. Okay, so this is part 2 of finding the mean absolute deviation. So we were working on a word problem, and step 2, which is back here, we had to find the distance between each data value and the mean. And since we know the mean is 3 and we found the distances, these are all our distances. Now for step 3, all we need to do is find the sum of distances in step 2. Wait, here we go, in step 2. Okay, so just need to add up all of our distances. It's 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, plus 2. I believe that's correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, okay. So we need to find the sum of all of these numbers. Now if you add, so go ahead and pause it, add it all together, and see what answer you get. Okay. So now that you've unpaused it, you should have gotten the number 10. Okay, so that is the sum of all the distances that we found. Now step 4, we just need to divide the sum by the number of data values, which means we're basically finding the mean of these distances. So we added the sum, which is 10, and we got to divide it by 8. 10 divided by 8, I'm going to do a quick long division here. 8 goes into 10 one time. 10 minus 8 is 2. Oops, I almost put 1 there. Is 2. Then we know that there is a decimal here and a 0. So we bring down the 0 here. 8 goes into 20 2 times, and don't forget to bring up your decimal up here. And this is basic division and dividing with and whenever you have a remainder, we don't just put the remainder up here and then that's the answer. We have to bring the 0 down and check and go through the full process. So 8 goes into 22 times. 8 times 2 is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. Bring down another 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. So our official mean absolute deviation, sorry, I almost forgot there, or our mean absolute deviation is 1 and 25/100ths. Okay, so that's our official MAD for this data set. So the data value differs from the mean by an average of 1 and 25/100ths, or 1.25, or 1 1/4 marshmallows. Okay, all right, so now that we've done 1, let's look at a data set in a graph form. Okay, example B, we need to find the MAD of the data set that is presented in this graph. Okay, so this graph looks like it says it's the number of bubbles, and each person, it says the bubbles blown by each gum chewer. So they were just trying to see how many bubbles each person can blow. So each person has their bar to show how many bubbles they blew, and it looks like, so we have 4, 5, 6, and 1. So step 1, we need to find the mean of this data set. So we have 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 1. And then we need to divide that sum, because remember the mean, you got to divide it by however many numbers there are in the data set. So there are 4 numbers in the data set. So now I want you to pause this video and I want you to see if you can find the mean before you check with me in this video. So pause the video, do it on your own, and then unpause it once you are finished. Okay, so if you've added this, okay, sorry, the video may have cut off before I was able to finish my sentence, but if you add all of these up together and you divide it by 4, you should have gotten 16 divided by 4. So 16 divided by 4 equals out to 4. So that's our mean of this data set. Okay, so now step 2, we need to find the distance from the mean. So our data, again, is 4, 5, 6, and 1. And our mean is 4, 4, 4, 4. So now we need to find the distance from the mean. So this is what's interesting. Now we have 4 and 4. How many units do we have to get from 4 to 4? You should say 0, none, because it's already 4. Now how many units do we need to jump to get from 5 to 4? It is 1. How many units do we have to jump to get from 6 to 4? It is 2. And then however many units do we need to jump to get from 1 to 4? Which is 3. Okay, so we have 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we need to, now that we've figured out the distances from the mean and the data, we can figure out step 3, which is to find the sum of the distances. So we have 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we need to add those all together. 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3. Now, here's where some people, well, first of all, let's not jump ahead of ourselves. So we have 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3, which equals out to 4. Okay, so now that we found the sum of our distances, we can move on to step 4, which is, let me grab my paper here. Step 4 is to find the sum of distances divided by the number of values. So the sum of our distances is 4, and we need to divide it by however many number of values. So if you look back on your other paper, even though this number is a 0, it's still counted as part of the data. So we can't say that we are going to divide it by just 3, even though there is only this number is 0. This number is still counted as part of the data. It's still a part of the number of values. So we're not going to divide this by 3, we're going to divide this by 4, even though one of the numbers is 0. Okay, so now we have 4 divided by 4, which equals out to 1. So that's our MAD for that data set. Okay, so remember, even if you have a number that is part of the data set and it is 0, it is still considered part of the data set. So it's still one of the numbers and it needs to be counted in the number of values when you're trying to find the mean, because really all you're doing when you're doing MAD is you're trying to find the mean of the distances. So we found the sum of the distances, and even though one of the numbers of the distances was 0, we still have to count it. So it's going to be divided by 4, not by 3. So 4 divided by 4 equals out to 1, and that's our MAD. So now you have to try these. You have this data set here. You need to find the MAD of the following data sets. Find the data set, the MAD of this data set, and the MAD of this graph, or the data represented in this graph, okay? So once you have found the MAD of each of these data sets, go ahead and leave this paper on the top of your desk, and I will go ahead and walk around and stamp it and go ahead and move on to your next assignment.